Hello, me again. Can't get away from me, really, can you? Every Monday, here I am, popping onto your TV screens to talk about something. And today, it's the Championship. It's not quite in focus because we're assuming you all know a little bit more about English football than you do about the beyond the borders. But here we are. We're looking forward to a great evening. We've got lots of people that know way more about the Championship than me. And more than that, it's time to get into it. Let's get going. So, evening all, thank you very much for joining us again. Oh, so much to talk about. The Championship has started. It's all kicking off quite literally across women's football. And we've got the absolute honour, privilege, and incredibly hard job of trying to cover it all. That's what happens when you say you're going to go all the way across the world. But our lovely little travels have managed to find us a few people that we can talk to today. And here they are. We'll start with the one we all know, the lovable little teddy bear that is Sean Misra. How are you doing, sir, down there?
A lovable teddy bear? I don't think you've called me that yet. So, no, delight to be here. Full disclosure, I am watching the Wales game as I am doing this. We went 2-0 up inside 2.5 minutes. I don't know what to do with myself. This doesn't happen at all. But, no, I'm delighted to be here, Barry, and good to see you yet again.
It's lovely to have you on, and the fact that you chose us over watching Wales is an absolute privilege. So thank you very much, sir. Also, just following us around again, we have got somebody from Newcastle Fans TV, a great place to go if you're interested in all things Newcastle women, especially. And that's Joe down there. How are you doing, sir? Lovely to have you on the show.
Yeah, it's unbelievable to be here. Thank you all for having us on. Exciting start, plenty to talk about. Championship, it's going to be a tight league. Can't wait. Last minute getting called on by the guy in the channel. Chucked us on. I'm in here. I've got my notes up there on my other screen. I'm a little bit haphazard, but you know what? This is how it goes when you come from the north. So let's get this done. Happy to be here.
Well, if you're haphazard, I'm going off the back of an envelope at the minute. So I think between the pair of us, we should do incredibly well. And I'm delighted to have as well from the Halfway Line and Her Football Hub, somebody who knows probably more about the Championship in her little finger than I do across the entirety of my brain. And that's why she's here, because otherwise it wouldn't go down too well. It's Beth. How are you doing?
I'm very good. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, delighted, absolutely delighted. Now we're going to cover a whole bunch of stuff to do with the Championship, but for me there was only one place to start. Obviously, it's began this season. The season has begun this weekend. 11 teams. For me, in the start, that's already going to be a bit awkward. But 5 games that were played, and as I looked through them, there was one that caught my eye immediately. So we're going to kick off with that one. It's got nothing to do with the fact that we've got somebody from Newcastle Fans TV here. I did that before we even knew that was happening. But it's London City Lionesses and Newcastle United. For me, 2 massive teams that you've got to be talking about in terms of potential winners of the league this season. And they drew, which I suppose you would probably expect if you're talking about that. But London City Lionesses established, been in the Championship for a while, probably not so great towards the beginning of last season, but had a good recuperation and kept themselves in the Championship. But Newcastle just currently right like an elevator, doesn't seem to have a stop button at any point. So you'd expect me to start with a Newcastle fan, but I'm not going to. I'm going to go all the way back around the way that I just came. I'm going to start with Beth. We're going to let Joe just have a little bit of a hold off and a think, so he knows what he's going to say. But Beth, am I right? To have this sort of analysis of those 2 teams. What did you make of that as a result? Because I think 1-1 is brilliant in terms of Newcastle, but also London City, because that was a potential banana skin.
Yeah, I completely agree. I honestly wasn't very surprised by the result. I think it's great for Newcastle. I mean, to take any points from your first game after getting promoted is always a positive start. So yeah, probably not much to complain about there. Got in a really good crowd, which is great as well, down at London City. I think that the goal that London City conceded, not to at all take away from how well Newcastle played, but I think it probably wasn't a great goal to concede. And I think that Aslani's finish for her goal was unbelievable, and the position that she got herself into shows exactly why she's such a massive signing for London City, looking at it from their perspective. Also, the kind of cross in from Lotte Lindstrom to Aslani was, I thought, quite unbelievable when you think about the fact that Aslani didn't actually join the squad properly until really quite late in the summer, given international duty and things like that. I thought that was really impressive. But Newcastle, I mean, clearly not just the Demi Stokes show. Shania Hales, for example, was there at the ready. Unbelievable. So yeah, really promising start for Newcastle. Really looking forward to seeing more of them. But yeah, what a great way to start their season. And as for London City, wouldn't have much to complain about if I were a London City fan either, because yeah, Newcastle were a tough side. They kind of seem to be just rising up and up. So it'll be really interesting to see how the season goes for both of those teams.
I couldn't agree more. I think it really is to be. It's fascinating. I think really is the simple word to go for looking at that. But Joe, obviously, you know, you're going to be slightly biased on this one, I would hope. Otherwise, it's not going to work so well with your name down there. But 2 questions for you. First one, exactly the same as I just asked Beth, but sort of as a Newcastle fan, how are you feeling having got into a situation where you come straight up into the Championship and immediately got points on the board? And the second one is Shania Hales. We used to have a footballer for Stevenage Men called Barry Hales, and I just wonder if she's any relation.
I'll start with that one, and I don't actually know. That's given us something to look at. So I'll have to get back to you on that one. That might be after the podcast on that one, or I might get someone onto that. That's an interesting one.
To it. Inbox is always open.
We'll try and have a look into that. That's a first. So coming straight up, look, I was one of the people who, to not so much show me bias, I was one of the people who, when we came up into the Championship, we all turned around and said, oh, it's going to be amazing. We're going to have a great time. We're going to keep going to new heights, all that sort of business. In actual fact, I was saying it's a massive jump. We've went from quite an easier side for a face to jumping into the Championship where it's very tight, especially with losing some of the teams that they have. And I'll be honest, I went into this game expecting London City to snatch the victory in the dying minutes. But one thing I was very impressed about was how well we displayed ourselves against London City Lionesses, especially with their recent investment, the steps they've been making, the moves they've been making in women's football. We've really stepped up yesterday, and I was extremely impressed in our midfield. I noticed Connor was saying there about expecting us to bring up Alicia Body, and that's exactly who I've got to start with. Alicia Body made herself a presence to be known on that pitch yesterday. She was part of many attacks. She was dropping back into a position I know many Newcastle fans won't be used to playing. She was dropping back into a central defensive midfield role a lot of the game. And I really like what Beth said before, saying about it not being the Demi Stokes show, because a lot of players came out, and the assist that was made by Jasmine McQuaid for Hales' goal was just brilliant, especially, which I don't think many people know, but Jasmine McQuaid just came up from our development team last season, and she's stepped into this position in the Championship. And for me, she was one of the better players on the pitch yesterday. And that's hard to pick, a very hard role to pick. And she's done brilliant. The finish was great. I think what came down to was in the second half, we went in that first half and we were very aggressive. And London City Lionesses sort of were able to go, right, okay, we'll let them play the game. We'll let them see what they do. And in that second half, the fitness came through, the experience came through. Those sort of signs were shown, and for to be able to hold that draw so well, I'm more than happy to take that point away. I'm more happy to take 1 point away from that stadium than anything else, and the performance was showed. I'm not going to go into them. I've got a couple of little nigs and nags and critiques that I've got, But honestly, for me, I think the best thing for Newcastle and any fan to walk away from that match to do is be happy, smile, and we all made a show. And yeah, Hales is just unbelievable. Body's unbelievable. Deanna Cooper played a brilliant game. Sibley came on and played an amazing game. Beth Lumsden, Jasmine McQuaid. There was so many names to just pick out and go, do you know what? We had a great first match. So I'm buzzing, and I'll shut up because I've rambled a lot there.
I was going to say, we was going to see if you wanted to answer this question for Emily there, but you've done that very much. You shouted out quite a few. So yeah, that's good news. Sean, for you, you're an avid watcher of football in general, but especially across the women's football spectrum. Where did you sort of see? Because I looked at that and I didn't know what to think initially. My first thought, if I'm being brutally honest, was, battle of the money, draw. And then the next thing I thought after that was, that's actually really quite good for Newcastle. But then you think that's actually really quite good for London City as well. Like I say, last season wasn't all sunshine and roses for them. So actually that's a solid point and a solid start for both sides, isn't it?
Yeah, I think I did some predictions before the season started, and I had Newcastle actually winning the league. And you can call me naive, you can call me stupid, and I have been called stupid. But I've got London City finishing second. No, I know. But I think they've gone about their transfer business very differently. I think London City are more the sort of the loud, the profile signings. But I think the way Newcastle have done it is similar to the men's team in the way that they're bringing in players, but they're not star players. They're just the players needed to go to that next level. They've got all the right pieces. And I think they're putting together a really good team. And one player I know Joe didn't mention was Leah Cataldo on the right. I thought she was astonishing. So quick, and speed kills in this league. If you've got that pace down the flanks, you have got one hell of a chance. And yeah, I thought it was a good game. I question the London City strategy a little bit. I know Michelle Kang's brilliant and what she's doing is fantastic for the women's game, but I'm kind of hesitant to sort of think all these players have come in, and a new manager as well, coming into a new country, it's a new culture and everything like that, a new league, having gone from Champions League semi-final to managing in the Championship. It's sort of, there are a lot of jumps in this London City team, so I don't think they're going to have as good a season a lot of people are hoping, but I'm quite high on Newcastle this season, I have to admit.
Interesting. That's an early shout there from Sean. There's only 5 games, so we'll sort of run through them all a little bit. And obviously last season, Crystal Palace won the Championship, but Charlton finished second. And they've kicked off brilliantly this season, a 3-0 win over Portsmouth, who obviously only just been promoted. Ellie Brazil, which I think anyone who's got the surname of Brazil is absolutely amazing. We've got one of those on the men's channel for Orf United as well. So that's great. And Jodie Hutton as well. Just 24 minutes it took them really. And then after that, they didn't need to worry too much. They could get their foot off of the gas, so to speak. Again, solid start for Charlton. Are they potentially one of the teams that you'll be looking at over the season, thinking they might be strong again going up this season?
I think so, yeah. I think Charlton obviously were right up there last season. Really strong side. I think they definitely have more than enough potential to maintain that standard. But I do also think that a lot of other teams are really upping their game too. So I don't think that Charlton should get too comfortable. I also think that Portsmouth had a really difficult opening 25 minutes. They just, I was there covering the game for the halfway line, spoke to Jay Sadler after, and he said, as he put it, Portsmouth looked like a rabbit in headlights for the first 25 minutes, which was probably an accurate description. But after that, especially after halftime, they came out looking completely different. And I know the score stayed as it was, but they did go forward at times. And they did show some really good qualities. So I think Charlton played really well, but I don't think anyone should write Portsmouth off in the sense of staying up. Just based on that performance. Ellie Brazil was absolutely brilliant, especially after she went down injured quite early on, just for a couple of minutes, I think it was, and you could feel the kind of anxiousness around that. Obviously, she's had some really horrible luck with injuries, but afterwards it carried on and was really the driving force behind the whole Charlton team, I thought. Jodie Hutton also outstanding. Reva Castley for Portsmouth, centre-back, probably their strongest player, I thought. Sophie Whitehouse off to a good start with Charlton. When she did have work to do, she did it well. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how Charlton fare this season, because obviously, like you said, they were so close last time around. But I think Portsmouth are a good side as well. I don't think that, 3-0, I think Newcastle are kind of an exceptional situation to come up into a league and immediately perform so well. I think given the investment and things, I think it is slightly unrealistic to expect exactly the same as Portsmouth. But they're not in a different league altogether, so to speak. But yeah, it was a good game. Really nice to see players like Ellie Brazil kind of jumping in, getting involved, and overall just thought it was a really good display of like championship football, and how exciting and competitive it can be at both ends of the table.
Absolutely, and it sounds like from what you're saying there that the Portsmouth did incredibly well to actually get into it, found their feet, and once they'd done that, they'd actually managed to put a stop to what Charlton were doing. And 25 minutes isn't the world's worst amount of time to figure out how to play up in the league above. It's just a shame that you've conceded 3 at that point, and it's a tricky way back in. Joe, obviously your team are going to end up playing all of the teams that we talk about today. I don't know how much of an eye you've had on the Championship whilst you were in the WNL North, but what's your take on Charlton and Portsmouth this season from what you saw at the weekend?
So, I mean, I was only on my way to work this morning. I caught up on the scores and some of the highlights of the games and such. And I've got to agree again with what Beth said. Actually, is Portsmouth are certainly a good side, and we went head to head against Portsmouth last season at St James's Park, and it was one of the toughest games of the season. And then I was shocked to see Charlton beat them 3-0. And on paper, I thought that's been an easy game. And I was like, great, they're our rivals, we're doing great, etc., etc. And when I actually seen some of the highlights, I was like, wow, no, Portsmouth has done a good performance for themselves. They were strong on the pitch. They were 3-0's a bad representation of the actual match. But for me, looking at, I don't think there's really any weak sides in this league. Realistically, I was extremely shocked at Sean saying that he thinks we're going to go top the league. Honestly, I'm already on a bet that if we go and do triple promotions, that I'm going to run around the pitch in an ostrich outfit 10 times. So clip that one up, everyone, if it happens. But no, I looking at Charlton and looking at Portsmouth, it's one of those where, again, I thought the Lionesses were going to do a job against it, and you've got to look at Charlton, you've got to look at Portsmouth, and you've just got to take every tactic that they use. And I think it's going to be one of those where we're going to have to change styles every single game. And it's hard to judge ahead of time in this league, and I've been expecting that. First game was great, and we've got to take it game by game. Yeah, it's Sheffield next. I'm looking forward to that one, but it's all about just taking each game and taking it as it comes and hoping for the best.
Fair enough, absolutely. And Sean, for you, I mean, again, that's a result. I look at that, I'm not overly surprised. Can we give Charlton, or should we give Charlton, all the credit, really? Because actually, again, that's a massive banana skin. You've got a club coming up, new to the league. It's easy to walk into those games and think, oh, we've got this one. To actually go out there and not just think, oh, we've got it, but in 25 minutes to put the game to bed. That's quite impressive. And again, something that's really going to settle them down for the season ahead.
Yeah, definitely. When you come second last season, there's an expectation on you. And as you said, it would have been easy to slip up, but that was I'd call it a professional performance over anything. I didn't have to be spectacular. It didn't have to be flamboyant. It just had to be a solid performance. And if they put a solid performance, more often than not, Charlton will beat those sides. And I think Charlton are probably one of 6 clubs who have got a really good chance of going up. And yeah, I think seeing what Ali Brazil's done, coming back off the injuries and everything, just seeing her in that little bit of form, even though it's just one game, if she can continue that, Charlton will always have a good chance. And I am Welsh, so I have to shout out any Welsh player. And Kaylee Barton, that back heel, search it. The back, glorious back heel. But No, Charlton are a good team, but I worry about depth. If they pick up 1 or 2 injuries, where's that depth coming from? That's where you compare it with the likes of Newcastle, you compare it with the likes of London City and others. I don't think Charlton quite have that depth, but they'll be up there. But I'm just a little worried if they pick up 1 or 2 injuries.
And what's the Wales score, Sean? Still 2?
Yeah, 49 minutes, 2-0.
I guessed it was because you hadn't moved. But all eyes are firmly on you to see what happens, whether it's just going to be a little fist pump or if you go running off on an ostrich. Who knows? We'll find out as it goes on. Beth, the next match, we have to go to this one, I think, and I've jested about it in the chat. But this is it's a massive scoreline, and it's blown me away. He's getting excited. He can see it coming. Sunderland finished 3rd last season. Birmingham, I think, were 5th. And there was only like 5 points between the two. Both of them did really well last season. For Birmingham to come out first game of the season, I've got to say, to smash Sunderland 5-0 in the manner that they always get a bit excitable here. Oh, this is terrible stuff. Pride of the North East. Oh, well, that's it. All the Sunderland fans have turned off. Looks like we're only going to be a 10-club championship discussion program as well. But genuinely, 5 goals. It was all over again about 53 minutes in. 2 goals from Lucy Quinn, one of them a penalty. Lily Agg scoring, Ivana Fuso scoring, and trying to get one. Is it Cho Yuri also doing pretty well? I mean, that's mad. 5-0 for a side that was so close together. Where's the drop-off come from? How is it that Sunderland have gone in and lost so heavily on a first game? Have Birmingham just got better, or Sunderland, they lost some players? What's gone on? Why such a disparity in that result, do you think?
I think there's a really interesting conversation to be had about this game. For me, it was the only real shock of the weekend. I'm not necessarily saying I would have expected Sunderland to win, but I certainly wouldn't have expected them to lose 5-0. And Birmingham City, they haven't undergone that much change over the summer. So it's interesting that they've started their season like with a 5-0 win against one of last season's top teams is like huge. So yeah, lots to consider there. Like, were Sunderland really struggling? Were Birmingham just really, really good? Lots to talk about, probably different various opinions on that as well. I thought Ivana Fuso and Cho Yuri were definitely the standouts. Both really, really good. But I think with Birmingham City, there's no taking away from that scoreline and that performance, but it will be interesting to see how they stand the test of time. Do they win 3-0, 4-0 in their next fixture, or do they draw? Do they lose? How does it go from here? It's certainly a good start, but a good start isn't enough to keep you at the top all the way. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes. And with Sunderland, I was honestly quite surprised at that scoreline. Quite confused as to what went wrong there, really. And likewise, it'll be interesting to see how they either learn and develop from that, or if it kind of stunts the rest of their season. I think there must be a lot of factors on both sides that have gone into a game panning out that way. But yeah, definitely lots to talk about.
Yeah, you're not wrong. And obviously, Sean, I'm kidding, Joe. I'm kidding. I'll let you have your go. Honestly, I know that you're going to have this from a Newcastle point of view, but this result must have shocked you too. I mean, I know that it gives you a fair amount of bragging rights on the opening weekend, but you can't have expected that as a scoreline.
No, I'm buzzing, obviously, absolutely buzzing. But a lot of people have been like, "Oh, we're going to smash them," we're going to when we go down to Stadium Light, we're going to like beat Sunderland so easy, and I'm like, it's a tough game. They beat us, I hate to say this, but last pre-season, they beat us 4-1 and we got a player sent off. A lot of people, obviously, I noticed there's a guy from our channel who's saying Claudia Moan equals the answer. I think that is a big pointer. Them Sunderland to lose 5-0, it shook me. I couldn't believe it. I mean, the game was over well before it finished. That's just not a. I hate to say this, but that's just not a good representation of them. Notice I didn't say the team name, so people can't clip that up the wrong way. But yeah, it's not a good representation. Like Beth was saying, they haven't really undergone many changes. Birmingham City, so to come out in this form and be able to put to bed Sunderland, who last season were rivals for the trophy. You know, they were going up at one point. And they've came out and they've absolutely tattered them. There's got to be a lot going into it. Maybe one or two of their players were just, I mean, looking at the highlights, a lot of their players just weren't really performing a lot. You look at the stats, it looks very, very, very one-sided. It's shocked me. It's made us very excited though. If Sunderland keep that amazing form up, we'll have a very nice time in October, 1 week before my birthday as well. So yeah, I'm very buzzing with that result. I am indeed.
I mean, it's not coming across, that's for sure. So no need to worry too much about that. Oh, Beth just dropped out. She's okay. Well, she obviously wasn't very happy with it. I'm sure she'll be back momentarily.
Secret Sunderland fan.
Yeah, possibly. She didn't sound like one, I've got to be honest, but you never know. I don't sound like a Man United fan. Sean, speaking of, Ivana Fuso obviously plays for Birmingham. She didn't really get too much game time for Manchester United at the time that she was there. She went off on loan, and by the time she came back, was immediately shipped out to Birmingham. But do you just think maybe there was a little bit of experience and a little bit more know-how perhaps on the Birmingham side of things, or is it too easy to say that? And is Emily correct that maybe it's just a bad day at the office for Sunderland, and you know, it is at the end of the day just one result? There may well be 5 goals, but it's one game, and it's still worth 3 points.
Young players not getting an opportunity at Man United? Surely not. That's a new one to me. On Sunderland, I spoke to Mary McAteer before the season started. So the vibe I got from her was that last season was a monumental effort from Sunderland, and I don't think they would have predicted to be up there in the first place. So to have that drop off, it doesn't come as much of a surprise. I wouldn't have them battling up there this season at all. And I think what Birmingham do have, although there hasn't been much change, Birmingham have the best manager in the league. Amy Merricks is a sensational manager. Was at Brighton for such a long time as an assistant coach and would come in and do the caretaker role so many times. And every time she did it, she received high praise from every opposition manager, from her own players. And when Wales had a vacancy before Rhian Wilkinson, I really wanted Amy Merricks to come in because she just plays this really good style of football, is so forward-thinking. And if she can get the best out of players like Ivana Fuso, then Birmingham have got a really good chance. But yeah, I think Birmingham will be up there. And I genuinely praise Amy Merricks so much for that role.
Fair play, Sean. Fair play. Beth, welcome back. Everything all right?
Thank you. Yeah, back now. Don't know why my laptop decided I wasn't allowed to be here anymore, but glad I'm back. Sorry about that.
They may have outed you as a Sunderland fan at that point. So
I had you down as a Markham there, like I really did.
Everyone walked away with. So it's up to you if you want to defend yourself or not. But 4th place last season, obviously, was Southampton. Bristol City were relegated from the WSL after a pretty haphazard and poor performance in the WSL. But another draw in that game. Southampton drawing 1-1 with Bristol City. Amy Palmer scoring for Southampton and Lexi Lloyd-Smith equalising for Bristol City. How big of a result do you think that is? Again, Southampton, one of the teams that were really pushing to try and take the title from Crystal Palace, but equally for Bristol City to drop straight back down. A loss to Southampton could have been, I don't want to say catastrophic, because it's a little bit over egging the pudding, I suppose, for the first game of the season. But if you had a really poor season prior and then you come in and don't get any points, you maybe do start to wonder if the rot's setting in. This one at least shows a little bit of fight, a little bit of oomph, and gives them something to build on for the season.
Definitely, yeah. I think this was another game, along with pretty much all of them, that showed exactly how competitive the championship is. And as we saw last season with, as you mentioned, the small number of points that separated sides like Birmingham City and Sunderland, despite being not right next to each other on the table. I think this scoreline in particular really highlights that, because you've got a team that have just yo-yoed back down from the WSL, unfortunately for them, and have had a bit of a tough summer. For them to not lose their first game, like you said, okay, it's the first game of the season, but it really can affect your trajectory rather, if you don't start kind of on the right foot. I mean, what a goal from Amy Palmer, unbelievable for Southampton. When I kind of watched it back, I was like, surely not. Thought that was brilliant against her former club. And then Lexi Lloyd-Smith showed real promise when she was at Southampton, really talented young player, and great finish from her to give Bristol City the equaliser that I think is important. And in the Championship, every single point, every single goal matters. So I don't think the significance of that really, even regarding the fact that it was the first game of the season, should be discounted. I hope that Bristol can kind of float near the top despite the summer's challenges and lots of outgoings, change of manager, etc. It would be a shame to see them plummet. But I also think Southampton have kind of entered this new era where they've also got a new manager, and they did well last season, but were still quite disappointed because there was a point where they were chasing promotion. And again, that all just speaks to how this league is becoming more and more competitive every single season. But yeah, I think another exciting game. Will be interesting once again to see how both these teams fare going forward. But yeah, I think really interesting one. Some good goals this weekend, not just in this game, but in general, which is really exciting. And it's nice to see that quality really like getting its chance to shine in the Championship, especially from some younger players. And as you touched on right at the beginning, I think, Barry, with even like the highlights being on YouTube, people being able to then see those goals and those goals to kind of get some traction online of, oh, wow, like that was a good one, is really great for the league. It's great for the players. It's great for the club. So yeah, a lot of positives, I think, to be taken. I know in an ideal world, both teams would have liked to get 3 points, but I think this is one of the games that almost certainly could have gone either way. So I don't think anyone should be disheartened by a draw.
No, I mean, absolutely not. And Joe, I was going to ask that for you. I mean, you've drawn, obviously, your first game against London City, as we spoke about at the start of the show. Putting yourself into Southampton and Bristol City's position, would you see that equally? If you were Southampton and you were fighting for the title last season, if you were Bristol City and you dropped down from the WSL, would you see a point in your opening game there as positive?
Oh yeah, without doubt. I mean, I think if I was either of those teams, it's a fair representation of where you're currently standing. I've just, as Beth said there, and it's testament to what they're doing with this YouTube. I didn't actually see the highlights, and when you mentioned Amy Palmer's goal, I was like, I'm having a little look at this. What a strike! What a free kick that is! That is unbelievable. Loving that one. But watching the highlights just there, and yeah, it's a good testament. You see two high-paced sides who are going at each other left, right, and centre. There's not much to separate the two sides. It's a one for me, which is just, again, not to keep saying what Beth said, but it's true. This league is so tight. It is such a hard league. So you've got to be positive. As long as you're not losing points, you've got to be positive. And even in loss in this league, there's always going to be something to learn from teams. I understand that this season Newcastle are going to go off and we're going to lose a game or two that we should probably win, or we're going to draw in a game that we should probably win. We've just got to walk away from them games and be grateful for what we do get. So yeah, I think if I was Bristol, I'd be happy. Yous have dropped down and yous are still performing well. Yous aren't on a downward slump. Yous are in a nice position, and I think they're the main team who would need to be critical after this match. Yeah, I'd be happy.
You lot have been brilliant. You've segued into my next question perfectly, the pair of you so far. So here's Sean to spoil it when it comes to my final question, I'm sure. But it's interesting because Bristol City, I think, probably just edged it. They had the more shots, the more efforts, although they had the same amount on target and the same amount of possession. So it was a tight game. Do you think Bristol City will maybe have come away from that thinking that if they'd have just been a little bit better at their finishing there and their aim, that actually that they might have come away from this with an opening day victory? Or do you think they can just be quite content? They've got out of it, they've got a point, and they can move on to the next game?
I'll be honest, if I was a Bristol City fan, I'd be delighted with that draw, especially with everything that's gone on during this pre-season. I'm quite worried for Bristol City, to be very honest. You see Lauren Smith going, and I couldn't believe that she did leave when she did, because all of last season she was talking about, even though we'll probably go down, we are building for next season. We are building for a good season in the Championship. And everyone at that time, all the players were staying, and now, 11 have left and only 5 have come in. It's a very imbalanced squad, and they're going to hire someone else. Lauren Dykes isn't going to stay on for the job. But yeah, I think with all the turnover at Bristol City, I think a point away to Southampton is a very good point, because I think Southampton are probably one of the dark horse in the league this year. They made some really shrewd signings. I think Rachel Rowe from Rangers, an absolute steal. How has she managed to go to Southampton when she can easily play WSL football week in and week out? I think is a brilliant signing. I think Remy Allen's a really good manager as well. So if I'm a Bristol City fan, I'm quite delighted with that draw, and just see where you go this season, because I think they would have started as the favourite to go up, but with everything that's happened, I don't see him as a favourite to go up anymore.
Fair enough. I'm sorry, Sean, but I was completely waylaid by what NFTV's put in the chat, because they brought up the name for a Hartlepool, and I know why they do that. And I was just like, I'm sure I've heard that somewhere on a history show, and I have. So there you go. So it completely took me away from that, but brilliant as ever. Last game, Durham, Sheffield United, 2-1. It finished to Durham. Sheffield United had the better season last season. Durham kept themselves away from the bottom just about. We had Molly Lambert opening the scoring for Durham before Eva Butler equalised in the 40th minute, and then Carly Johns won it for Durham in the 55th minute. Again, really good game, and a great one for Durham as well. We've always said, you know, Man United women have played Durham more than their fair share of times, especially in the Conti Cup. And they are a tricky side. They are a tough. They battle hard. They don't make it easy for you. And the pitch on which they play as well is probably the exception rather than the norm in the top 2 leagues at the moment. For them, it's going to be a really tricky place. That's where they're going to get, I would imagine, most of their points when they're at home and they make it difficult for people. What did you make of that? And what do you think of Durham's chances of staying up this season as well?
Yeah, I think they're definitely a side that they wouldn't be in my kind of relegation pool as such, which I'm sure we'll discuss a bit later. Obviously, they've had some difficulties last season, wasn't ideal for them. But yeah, I think it looked like they defended well at times. The goal to concede was probably a bit of a blunder to give away that equaliser. So they would have been relieved to get that back, because to drop points for the sake of conceding that particular goal would have been really frustrating. But yeah, I thought Carly Johns, young player, has clearly settled in really well. She did kind of look a little bit, not lost, but maybe a little bit nervous earlier on, with a miss that probably was a really good chance. But then obviously later on there was that strike to reclaim the lead for Durham. So she definitely made up for it there. And that was really nice to see. Sheffield United do look like they have a lot of fight in them, though. Durham, as you say, like, are a tough side to beat. So I don't think it's not necessarily an indicator of how Sheffield United's entire season will look. Didn't think they played exceptionally well, but I also think, 2-1 first game of the season, it's not anything really crazy to get too upset about just yet. So will be interesting to see. Opening goal from Molly Lambert, another impressive one. to take away from the weekend and make a note of. But yeah, again, just shows how kind of unpredictable this league can be, in the sense that when it comes to the reverse fixture, I think that'll be a good indication of where if both of these sides are when they play each other again further down the line. I feel like first game of the season in that situation can be a tough one. Great for Durham to get 3 points. Obviously, Sheffield United will be disappointed, but both will just be looking to continue to progress now. Whether they're the winning or losing side, there's things for both to work on. So yeah, it'll be really interesting to see where it goes.
It's been really tempting to do my very best Jeff Stell in there, because Sean was giving it the old, I'll just say it's a goal at Wales, let's say it gets a Sean, but that's men's football, that's not what we're here for. So we'll leave that one alone for the moment. Joe, again, Durham getting the win in that one. Is that one that gave you a little bit of a shock, or are you a bit like Beth there and just thinking it's one of those where it could have gone either way, and on this case it is just for the home team, and the reverse fixture could just as easily go to Sheffield United?
Yeah, I think we've obviously, as Newcastle fans, have been keeping our eyes on Sheffield because we want to know the opponent that's coming towards us at Kingston Park on the 22nd. So we've been keeping our eyes on Sheffield, and I fancied our chances against Sheffield. I do. I think they're a side that we can we can go and get 3 points off of. I think it'll be a hard battle, but I think we can get the 3 points off of. And when we look over at Durham, obviously Durham's a side that we don't have a sort of rivalry that's as strong as Sunderland with. So in a sense, we were cheering on Durham last season, and eventually it's come to a point now where we want to keep an eye on them and see how well they do. And I think Durham made a great showing of themselves, and it does worry me as that might be the tougher of the two derbies after that opening day for Newcastle. But I think when it comes to Durham and Sheffield, I think it's a fair result in the state of things. And when you go back and look at the match footage, there was just a few opportunities that Sheffield really realistically should have put away. They should have made better use of. Whereas Durham capitalised on all those chances, which is the kind of team Durham are. Durham could go out there and they're the type of team that'll only get 2 shots on target, but you guarantee them 2 shots that they take are the ones that go in, compared to your 10 shots on target and you only get 1 in. That is truly the type of team Durham are. So I wouldn't be, as a Sheffield fan, I wouldn't be too disappointed. I would be disappointed knowing that you've got Newcastle to go against next, who we are known as one of those teams who we will take advantage of your low morale, and we will try and abuse that if you have that, and we will certainly go in with high morale. But yeah, I'm fairly okay with that result. I don't think there was anything to shock there.
Fair enough. And Sean, same question to you, really. It's the last game, and we've done them all. I've run out of questions for you, so there's the game. Anything you'd like to say about it, Sean?
Well, in my predictions, I put on TikTok, I put that these two would be towards the wrong end of the table, and Carly Johns commented with just ... And I thought, okay. And then she goes and scores the winner. I thought, okay, fair play. I'll give you that. I might change my mind. But yeah, I think it was quite... You can't really say there's a relegation 6-pointer as the first game, but it was a relegation 6-pointer at the start of the season. I think it is an important win for Durham, just to sort of, that's the benchmark now, and you can build on that. If you pick up wins against the likes of Sheffield, Montenegro have just scored, sorry. If you pick up wins against Sheffield United, if you pick up wins against Blackburn, if you can pick up your wins against Sunderland, then you're going to be okay in this division. And if they can just carry on doing that, they'll be okay. Sorry, I got distracted during that. But yeah, I think it's a really good win for Durham at the end of the day.
I didn't notice, Sean. Don't worry. I think you got away with it. You styled it out. No problems. There's one team that had a bye week, and that's going to be the weird thing, I think, Beth, about the championship this season, is that there is going to be one team that just doesn't play. Now, as a football fan, that would just really irk me if everybody else in our league is playing and you've just got to sit on your hands and go, not us this week. Obviously, there's not a lot we can do about it. Reading had to drop down. They weren't able to continue to compete, and it was too late, really, for us to be able to grab anybody up from the Northern Premier or the Southern Premier. But two questions really. Number one, how do you think Blackburn are feeling this week, having seen the joys of the opening weekend? They've had to miss it. They don't get to play their first game until next weekend. And secondly, do we see that becoming more of a positive or more of a negative as the season goes on? Is it going to be one of those where people are going to think maybe we've got the chance to rest our players, so that's good, it's going to give us that opportunity? But equally, in a well, let's be honest, in a women's football calendar that doesn't have as many games as it could potentially have domestically, especially at the lower level, that could be one of those where you could end up, especially with weather, being 2-3 weeks before you actually get to play again, which then really gets into your consistency and your ability to get momentum. So do we think it's going to be a positive or a negative?
I definitely think all of the points you've raised there are really important. I honestly think
you can come back.
I honestly think that even it's entirely dependent almost on the situation in the team, because I think some teams really thrive on having that momentum and that pace of week in, week out. And as much as it can bring its challenges, some teams really benefit from that. Whereas some teams do, I think, struggle a little bit more with the fatigue. And that's not necessarily like an indicator of which teams are better as such. It's just different styles, different maybe ways of coaching, training, etc., different ways of recovery and regrouping. So I think we'll see. All in all, though, it's obviously not ideal. And I think from the players' perspective, they want to be playing. They don't want to be having to wait an extra week, even if there might be some positives tactically, for example, that could bring. And it was a shame, obviously, to see Reading exit. And yeah, whole thing is not ideal. But I do think there are some teams that maybe it might play to their advantage a little bit. But all in all, it is a bit of a shame. I think for Blackburn, though, in this instance, when they've got London City for their first fixture, I personally probably wouldn't be too unhappy about it, because, as we said, London City had a bit of a up and down season last season. They've had all of this change over the summer. So actually to get to not play anyone the week before, really just focus on preparing for that particular challenge, could really work in Blackburn Rovers' favour. It might not, but I'd definitely be hoping that would be the case if I were a Blackburn Rovers fan. So yeah, we'll see. But I think a lot of it might be down to how and if managers and clubs decide to utilise it, or obviously the collective consensus is probably not thrilled about it, but hopefully there's a way that some teams can turn it into a positive, even though it's not ideal.
I mean, it's a really tricky one, as you say, to navigate. And Joe, as a Newcastle fan, you will have seen the team rising from the lower leagues from where I spend most of my time. And we do a show on here called Lower League Lingo, which is just trying to throw the spotlight on a lot of the other teams that are in the WNL and below. And I found this one quite interesting because we were talking about the second division in women's football pyramid. And yet it's going to end up with the sort of ending that you would get in a tier 5, tier 6, tier 7 season, because you'll often end up to, and I can distinctly remember a couple of seasons ago, it might have only been last season, Luton Town in our league just literally had to play about 4 games for the end of their season in about a week and a half because there'd been so many postponements. Ordinarily, though, you look at the WSL, they have it on the Saturday, every game is finished at the same time. I suppose it's supposed to be that equality of competition, the fact there's no advantage. One team, I can't remember which one it is off the top of my head, but one team is going to finish their campaign a whole week before everybody else. Now, that could turn into the world's best story. They could be 1 point clear at the top of the league, and then all of a sudden we're all just sat there watching it with on tenterhooks. But equally, it could end up being something that potentially helps another club because they already know what's going on. A team could be champions without even having to kick the ball because the other team lost the week before, so they don't need to worry about it. It's just gonna be a bit clunky that last week. Do you feel that's going to cause any problems for you as a fan?
I think when you mention the lower leagues, I definitely bring up the fact of we had last season was the first season in probably about 3 years, a good 3 seasons where Newcastle didn't sort of have a controversial ending where we were literally going down to the last game. And I remember we're promotion from not the league that we've just come out of, the league before that, we're promotion from tier 4 to tier 3. It was literally down to the last game and we had to score so many goals to win because of all the different postponements that had went on. And then we still had one more game that if the result went the wrong way, we wouldn't go up. And now to be in the championship and that to potentially be a case, it does bring some frustrations and some reservations, which when you consider the factor that the whole league structure has just been taken over, it's kind of in a fresh new place. You've got to give it that time to settle. You certainly can't say the championship and what happened with teams this season could have been saved as quick as that when they've just walked through the door, the new owners of the leagues. So yeah, I think for a Newcastle fan and looking towards potentially it's our turn next week. We've got a week off. I just feel like the season's got started and we're sitting back down again. And this is exactly how it started for our last season. And last season that paid off for us. So does it strike twice and do we go Sean's way and top the league because of this? I don't know. I'm not sure. It's weird. It comes with a lot of pros and a lot of cons. And I suppose it's one of those things that by the time we're halfway through the season and we can see where teams are sitting and see what the top half battle and the bottom half battle is going to actually be, then we can judge on if this week off is actually detrimental or if it's a benefit, or if realistically it doesn't make any difference, which could also be the case as well. It could be matterless in the end. But I think for me, it's just a bit frustrating for we're all of a sudden in the second top league and we're dealing with this thing that we were dealing with 2 years ago. It's weird. It's weird.
Where do you stand with this, Sean? Because I suppose the overarching part of all of this conversation really needs to be the fact that this is only happening because another football club has effectively had to downsize their women's football team. I'm trying to think of the polite way of putting it, really. But it basically just goes to show that it doesn't matter what level you're at in the game, there's still that danger for some clubs that they might not be able to continue to put the investment in. What does this whole situation, I was going to say do to you, but that doesn't really sound like the right question. How does this whole situation make you feel? Let's go for that one.
Yeah, I cover the Welsh leagues week in and week out, and in the second tier you've got a North and a South group, and they're normally 8 teams each. In the South, 2 seasons ago, it was a 5-team league because of various different things happening to clubs. And this year, before the league has even started, we're down to 7 again. And I know it's very different, but I think the Championship's in a very dangerous place right now because you have got the likes of Newcastle, you have got the likes of London City, who have the money and are willing to invest. There's nothing wrong with that. That is brilliant that clubs are able to do that and getting it done. But then you see the stories like Blackburn, you see stories about Sheffield United, you see women's only run clubs like Durham, for example, and you've seen what happened to Reading. There's now a divide in the Championship, which I don't think is being addressed properly. Now, who needs to address that? Is that the powers that be? Is that the league itself? Do the teams come up with a rule? Do you have a rule book which say, if you can't do this, you can't be in the league? I feel like we're on a tipping edge with the Championship. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens this season because, yeah, with one relegation spot as well, it is just a little worrying what we might be going into, especially when you hear the stories about Reading from former players and everything. It is horrible. And I can't shake in my head that'll never happen again because at this moment, it probably will happen again, hearing all these stories. So I just think we're in a very dangerous place in the Championship right now.
Very positive way there, Sean. Thank you very much. which we come round to you nice and quickly. Let's cheer us all up again. It's a fair point, though. Very fair point. I'm going to throw a question to the three of you now, and I'm only going to ask for a yes/no answer, purely because it's an additional question, one that I've just shoehorned in. But we've had, as I said at the beginning, we've done these in focus sessions where we've looked at the SWPL and where we've looked at the Italian league as well. And both of them do the split. So they play their games home and away, and then after that they do the split. Now, it was interesting, the Scottish one, when we did that, Laura and myself were all like, oh wow, that sounds really great. And then when we spoke to a few fans in the Italian show, they weren't quite so keen on it. My question for you is simply this: if they put the split in, could be in the Championship as well, could be lower down, but somewhere within English football, is that something that you think you would like to see in order to try and expand the number of games that teams are going to play without needing to worry too much about expanding the number of teams within the league, considering what Sean's just said there about the fact that there may be too many that just want to drop, or not want to drop out, but that need to drop out. So Beth, yes or no, would you be up for a split?
Yes. I won't start explaining now because I'll go on forever. But if we're going just yes or no for now, I'll give you a yes.
You're the shield. You're falling on the yes. Love that, Joe.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
He's got on the yes. He's got on the yes. 2 yeses.
Yes.
The X Factor, they'd be through. Sean?
They're going through to judges' houses. Yes, we've got it in Wales. It's brilliant.
It's 4 yeses. We'll see you at boot camp. Honestly, I think it could well be the way we go. The second thing, the second ultimate thing that I wanted to talk about was the highlights. I find this absolutely amazing because as I went to begin just a tiny bit of research for this session, obviously you just type in Championship matches to see what the results might be. You've got to be careful when you type that. You could end up all over the place. You end up with Championship matches in WWE. So you do have to be a little bit more clearer with your Google searches, I've found, if you want to find the Women's Championship football highlights. But they are there, just like you would get if you typed in Premier League. They're just there. There's the goals, the score, and there's the highlights with all of the goals. How good do you think, and Beth, you touched on it earlier from what we'd said backstage, but how important do you think this is now? That, especially for the Championship, WSL's always had it, but the fact that in the Championship now, it's going to be so easy to access those games that most people that enjoy women's football and enjoy the WSL probably don't have an excuse really now not to have at least been able to do their own little home match of the day and just sat and watched what will effectively be 5 games. It's 15, 20 minutes probably worth of highlights. And you're going to get what was, if it's anything like last year, an absolutely superb product.
Yeah, I think it's brilliant. It's so easily accessible as well. So you're kind of hopefully opening it up to a whole new audience, as well as people who already have an interest in women's football in the WSL or just football full stop. Yeah, so I think it's really great. It would be great to continue seeing it more accessible and to see more live streams. But no, I think it's a really, really positive thing. And like you said, it's so easy. They're all right there. The highlights are up pretty quickly. So yeah, just to do that little bit of research, if you were at a game, catch up on the others, and all of that. I think it's a great move. And just good for everyone, really. I struggle to think of many negatives. Maybe that could be naive. I could be missing something there, but yeah, I think it's really good.
I think, Joe, the obvious thing to point out about this is that we did still have this on the FA Player. You could go there, but the level of effort that you needed to go through to get to a point where you could watch something on the FA Player meant you really had to want to. Now, YouTube doesn't require that much of a level. You can just go in. If you've already subscribed to it, it's going to easily be there. More often than not, it will be suggested for you because, all of the little insects and everything inside the computers have worked out where you've been watching and what you've been watching. And, would you like to watch this? Funnily enough, yes, I would. So why don't we? And it's just going to be so much easier, isn't it? And as a result, therefore, I know I could have gone and watched the Championship stuff on FA Player, but I wouldn't because of the amount of time it would take me normally anyway just to go and watch Manchester United if I wanted to. So actually, this whole fact that it's just on YouTube, it's easy. The worst thing that's going to happen to me is I've probably got to watch 2 20-second adverts beforehand. I could probably live with that. Is that, from your experience as well, something that you think is going to be just incredibly positive and help to take us, I say us as if it's anything to do with me, to the next level?
Yeah, I think one thing that got proven for us last season, Newcastle, we really had a massive season of we need to show everyone in the country. And Andy Cook, the former assistant manager, went on to say this, not stealing these words just in case Andy ends up watching this, but he said last season the objective for Newcastle United women was to prove everything they could do, not just to the northeast, but to the whole country, to show it's worth investing in your women's football. It's worth going full time. It's worth getting the cameras up and making a good YouTube stream, because we did that for a lot of our games last season. And the accessibility of it was so easy. It was so simple. We'd plaster the link everywhere and post it. And it worked. It worked well. And our fan base from the matches went from at the start of the season about 5 to 6, 7, 800 to us, and even Manchester United fans will remember the amount of people we brought down to Leigh Sports Village last season during the FA Women's Cup. That was built, I think, heavily because lots of people were going, "Ooh, let's watch the women's match." They watched it and they went, "Hey, that looks like good stuff. Let's go and watch them. Let's go to the stadium. It's only how much? Let's do it." It entices a lot more people to go, "Do you know what? I fancy going to that match and sitting there." And with the work we do on NFTV, with the YouTube, and a lot of the time before we started doing YouTube at the club, and before the club started doing their own YouTube, I should say, everyone would rely on like Leigh of Newcastle Fans TV and Johnny and stuff and be like, "Oh, when's the vlog out? When's it coming out? Because we want to see the goals back." And they used to have to like wait till our video was out to actually be able to see them goals. Now, like you say, you just click on YouTube and it's probably recommended for you now. It is so accessible, and it's going to just grow the game so much. I think it's the best move that anyone could do. The only thing it's missing, which, hold on. Hello, Nikki Dissett, I reckon you need 4 presenters on the program. You know, the Barclays YouTube. I've got 4 right here for you. Aye. Spot on. We'll send you the link. Join in. Gosh, that's all that's missing. That's it.
It'd be good, yeah. We could do a match of the day. There's no problem with that whatsoever. I've got literally hours in my week, always. But yeah, no, it'd be good. Sean, I think it's obviously going to be positive, but isn't this where we really get to start clapping back at the misogynistic people that just think women's football shouldn't be anywhere near mainstream TV? Because actually, this is the point of it being there. If you see it, you're more likely to be interested in it. And the casual observer that isn't quite so ingrained in their, "Oh my God, football is just for the men, who's allowed these women anywhere near it? Go and get me my tea." I've used that term specifically because I never use that word unless it's for a cup. That's sacrilege to call your dinner tea. But all of these things, it's ridiculous. And actually, we're in a situation now where I see it at the schools that I teach at. There's so many more young girls and young boys that are just accepting this for what it is. It's just football, because that's what it is. They're not growing up with this ridiculous idea that actually it should just be for one gender, one sex. It shouldn't be that. It is literally for everybody. And this is just helping to break that barrier because it's so accessible. You spoke about some of the lesser known leagues. The Scottish Premier League is on BBC every week. They have a midweek game. There's often a weekend one. There's just so many. When you go on Live Football and TV, which is my favourite app to go and see where I can go and watch a football match if there's one on, nearly every day you're going to see something that's got a women's football match somewhere. Granted, some of them are behind a paywall, so you might never get to them. But there's a lot of them now that are available to watch. And that's all this is. When it's easy, there's that old saying of, if you can see it, you can be it. But it is that whole idea of actually, if you can see it, you're much more likely to want to watch it. I'm never going to be into bowls because I've not got the level of effort in my life to go and search that out. Now, if you give me some bowls to go and play, I'll roll them down there all day long. No problem. It's a great game. I love trying to get the ball close to the jack. It's brilliant. But I ain't watching on the telly because, my God, the level of effort I'm going to have to put in is ridiculous. But if that was on the telly, I'll probably have it on. Same with archery, the Olympics. I loved it. But again, I ain't going off looking for the sailing. It's not happening. But if you put it on there and it's so easily accessible for you, you go into it. It's ultimately got to be the big win here, hasn't it?
Yeah, my advice to these men who don't want to enjoy it, suck it up. It's here. It's going to stay. You're not going to do anything to stop it. So deal with it. It's quite simple. And if you don't want to watch it, don't watch it. And don't tell us you're not watching it. Just don't watch it. I don't want to watch League Two football. I think it's awful. Do I complain that it's on the telly? No, I don't. Just suck it up. And in terms of the YouTube, it's the next logical step, really. We're trying to grow the league. This is just the logical steps in order to do it. I think it's a great idea. I think our Lord and Saviour, the FA player, did a tremendous job. It has served its purpose, but we're growing with the times, and YouTube is just the most logical step to get onto these times. So yeah, all round good move. And old men who don't like it, sod it.
Absolutely that. Emily, it was called Live Football on TV. It's a website as well. It's so easy. You can just refresh it and it just makes life incredibly simple for you should you wish to know what's on the TV. Funnily enough.
Could I just jump in there about something as well with women's football and the way it's changed so much? That one up there, that's Becky Langley. That's our manager. And that is our flags. War flags, they actually started creating stuff like that at the start of last season, well before we were going to win the trophy. And I think that is something that is shined out in likes of Chelsea does it. Manchester United's got a great relationship with its fans. It shines out in a massive way, like you touched upon before, Barry. Young kids, I've got a 6-year-old daughter, and her life has completely changed coming and watching these lasses play. They are massive inspiration, and we need to invest so much more into this game. I'm really, really, really happy with how much is starting to get done for women's football. And I love the commentaries have made. It's absolutely excellent. People need to sit down and just get on with it and enjoy it, or don't. Simple.
No, absolutely that. And Newcastle did it themselves by having the game at St James's Park and just a simple change rather than saying, "How are the lads? How are the lasses?" Easy. It's so simple. It's not hard at all. And Sean, I'm with you. I've never understood the number of people that feel they have to complain. I used to watch Big Brother when I was younger and I had loads of time in my life. And then I saw Katie Hopkins was on Celebrity Big Brother. And do you know what I did? I switched it off. And then I just went and did something else. I just didn't watch it for her. And that was it. That was the end of my addiction to Big Brother. Can't be bothered with that anymore. But nobody needs to know that until today. So there you are. I have one final question for the three of you to end what has been a really good show. I've really enjoyed it. I want to know who you think is likely to compete. So who we think might finish towards the top of the table and who's set up to compete. So if they did go up, would go into the WSL and potentially compete there as well, rather than coming straight back down. And also who you might be tipping for relegation this season. And Joe, you're not allowed to say Newcastle for the league without giving me a possible viable alternative. All right. So, Beth, we'll let you go first.
Thank you. So mine's not a very straightforward answer, but I think in terms of competitors, Charlton could fare well, and I think have the potential to fare well if they were to get promoted. Because, and my logic in thinking that is that they were so close to that last year, they've got to have the infrastructure in place. They're playing all their games at the Valley this season. So you can see the steps being made and that really is their ambition, as it is for all clubs. But there's that being your ambition, and then there's acting on that being your ambition, which I think is what Charlton are doing. Obviously, your Newcastle, your London City Lionesses have got that investment. I think in those instances, it's very much the long-term project, though, and we'll see how that goes. But I definitely think, especially with Newcastle, there's the potential, and likewise with London City, with the investment of Michelle Kang and everything that's going on there. Another one that I do want to throw into the mix as well is Southampton, as Sean mentioned earlier. They've got some really strong players. I think Remy Allen's a brilliant manager. The men's team are in the Premier League now, so hopefully there's lots of work and investment going on there, stuff that the women's team can also thrive off of. So we'll see. But for me, they're the ones to watch. And in terms of being at kind of the wrong end of the table, I think it's a difficult one. And I don't want to just kind of jump on any of the teams that lost their first game and go, oh, well, you're going to get relegated because you lost your first game, because we all know that that's not how it works. But I think Blackburn haven't played yet, obviously. But they had a lot of outgoings this window, and we've obviously heard some questionable things about behind the scenes backroom stuff. So I think they could have a difficult run of it, depending. I mean, only time will tell, but they're one that I would maybe be a little bit concerned about. And I'm going to put my faith in Portsmouth staying up. I think they're perfectly capable. And I don't want to fall into that trap of saying them just because they're new to the second tier. I think they deserve a good shot, and I definitely think they can compete with like mid-table teams. So yeah, would really like to see them stay up, and that's a little bit of an overview of how I see the season going. So we'll see if those predictions are right or not.
Absolutely. I mean, this will be on the internet forever. So there we go. Not escaping it now. You've said it. And instead of play up Pompey, you've got to stay up Pompey. So very good. Joe, what are you thinking?
Newcastle are going to win it all and Sunderland are going to get relegated. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Have a great night, and I'll take care and see you next time. No, realistically, and this is the one I've shocked a lot of people with. I personally think Newcastle's going to finish 7th or 6th. This league. I just think we've done a lot of business within the club that a few are, like, I'll be honest with you, I mean, she's going to see us and she might end up giving us a hacky look or whatever for this, but I'm not the biggest fan of Demi Stokes on the pitch for us. I think we've made some signings that are great and they've got great stuff on paper, but I just don't think it's going to be a big one for us to really go out there and win the league. Again, if we do, ostrich run. So personally for me, I've been looking at it, and I don't think it's going to be your typical Charlton, Sunderland to go and win the league. I think you're actually going to see Durham do some business this season and go out there and shock a lot of people. I wouldn't mind seeing Durham come in the top 3. And I've already said this lots of times, and that was why I was so shocked on the opening game. But I think London City Lionesses are probably going to be in for the shout of the title this season. They've just got a certain momentum behind them, and Newcastle are a team who know that when you get a big refurbishment of your whole infrastructure, it really shoves a rocket up you. It really does. And I think London City Lionesses are going to be the team to, if not come first, they're going to come second. But I think it's going to be between sort of London City Lionesses, Charlton sneaking in there towards the end, and Durham. I think they're going to be the big 3 to watch out for. Relegation battle. I don't want to jump on Portsmouth too early, especially with the opening game. But Portsmouth are a team who you would have expected them to do a lot more big business coming up into the Championship, and I don't think they did quite enough. I think Portsmouth will be a team who fight towards the bottom of the table, but I do think, and I know a lot of people are going to be saying it, but it's hard to not say it's going to be Blackburn Rovers to be relegated. As sad as that is, I think Blackburn are probably the closest shout to being relegated, but I do think Portsmouth are going to be down there as well. Yeah. Tight table though, tight table.
Wow. I mean, that is quite a thing. I mean, everybody's agreed with you there. So that's 3 people that are saying Blackburn might go down. And I've only just been to Specsavers, but I might need to go again because I really thought that said I would like to see a shark. And I'm like, it's not the right show for that conversation, to be honest with you. But there we go. Off we go. We've nearly finished, though. See what I did there. Sean, let's ask you the same question. Who's going up? Who's going down? What does your crystal ball tell you?
With the words of "this lives on the internet forever" ringing in my ear before I say all this, I generally think one of 6 teams are going to go up. Newcastle, London City, Southampton, Birmingham, Charlton, Bristol City. It'll be
Is
one
it
of
really
those.
a prediction if you name 50% of the league?
Newcastle then there, because I've said
You
it
narrow it
before.
down to 3? Out of
Oh, it'll
those,
be
very happy over there.
Newcastle, London City, Southampton at the top 3 for me.
Okay.
But if you're looking for teams who I think could actually contest the WSL, I think these days you need backing. And so I'm looking at, I think if Newcastle were to go up, they'd get really good backing. I think that will help. Same with London City and same with Birmingham. These new American investors in Birmingham don't seem to muck around, and I think they will invest. And I think that's why you'll see very early WSL. I think Crystal Palace coming straight back down. I don't think they've had the investment required to really make a good go of it. But in terms of the bottom, I think 3 teams. I think Blackburn, even though they haven't played, it seems quite harsh to say they're going down, but they'll be down there. Sheffield United and Durham, I think will be down there as well. But I think what you've seen from tonight is this is a very competitive league. It's going to be the most closely fought championship for a really long time. Hopefully this weekend's just the first of many good weekends to come.
There you go. So basically what I heard there is there's 6 teams that could get promoted and 6 teams that could get relegated.
Portsmouth and Sunderland are going to do nothing all season as far as I'm concerned, Barry. Absolutely no. It's going to be there. Vibes only.
I look forward to it, Sean. I really do. Gang, it's been absolutely superb. We usually run for an hour, but I was really enjoying myself there. You guys have been absolutely superb at trying to get the font of all knowledge in. So thank you very much. Sean, once again, we'll just pop back to you real quickly. Where could people find your work if they wanted to hear more from you?
Yeah, so my handle there is for Twitter and TikTok. That's where I mostly am all the time. Twitter, anything Welsh football, I'm there. That's all I do, really. On TikTok, a bit of everything. So give me a follow. It's been a delight, Barry. Thank you very much.
Super duper. Thank you very much. Joe, if anybody wanted to hear more of your views on Newcastle women, especially, I mean, obviously you do a little bit with the men as well, I believe, where would people find your work?
YouTube, you can find the whole gang of work at Newcastle Fans TV, and that is the same on Twitter, that is the same on Instagram, everywhere. Sean, I'll be seeing you soon because you've really, really, really cheered me up this podcast. I have loved this. Yeah, Newcastle Fans TV is on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, everywhere. Appreciate being on. It's been a really good one.
Well, we really enjoyed having you. Thank you very much as well. And of course, Beth, just down there. You were up there, but went away and relegated down to there. So sorry about that. I didn't choose where to put you. That's just where StreamYard went. You can go there. Where can people find you once you jump off of the show again?
So you can find most of my written stuff on the Halfway Line, also her Football Hub, and on Twitter, I'm just at Beth R. McCowan.
Beautiful. Well, it's been absolutely, I've really enjoyed it. I had a great time. It's my 3rd league that I've been spending time learning about. God knows what I'm doing next week. We could be doing something about the WSL. We could be talking about the Welsh leagues. We could be talking about the American leagues. I could have a week off. Who knows? We'll find out at some point. But for now, it's been brilliant. Take care. See you next time.